Hi
Hi
everyone.
everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Can We Discuss with Yada and Petra.
We've been going back and forth on whether or not we wanted to post this week's episode. But now, as you know, we decided that we should. Today's topic is a topic that we've been around our entire lives. But for today's episode, we're not going to be discussing this from a political point of view, simply because we believe that we should all be held accountable for our own education on this topic. And we personally, Petra and I, know that we still have a lot of education to do on this topic ourselves. What we will be discussing today is the topic of Palestine and the way the media has portrayed the events differently in different parts of the world and how it has made us and many people feel about what's happening today.
Yes, as you all know, Yada and I both live in two different sides of the world that are getting a completely different side of the story. And it's been pretty incredible to see the differences between how this topic has been portrayed on both sides of the world. I think that's what we want to focus on today is really to talk about specifically the media and social media, how this topic is being portrayed on social platforms, how people are receiving it as well, and really just understanding how we should be approaching this topic as well.
Bear with us as we kind of explore this topic and the conversation that we're going to have today. As usual, we would love your input when it comes to anything that we are discussing. If there's something that you think we should educate ourselves more on, please feel free to let us know as well in the comments. But I think I want to start off by asking this. Petra, how has the media and everything that has been posted about Palestine thus far made you feel?
Honestly, there's a lot of mixed emotions when it comes to this because on one side, I'm kind of happy to see the coverage that this topic has been getting in the US specifically. It's been so refreshing to see a lot of people really take initiative to educate themselves on this topic. I think that's been the biggest change. But obviously, at the same time, seeing the coverage from Palestine, seeing the genocide that's happening on the ground is very emotional for all of us. It's very emotional for me. I find myself contradicting myself a lot where I want to educate myself and I want to see what's happening and I want to constantly be so close to it. But at the same time, I find myself getting very emotionally drained when it comes to constantly
Subjecting yourself to the images and the videos that are coming out of Gaza.
100%, like constantly just consuming all of this content and being like so obsessed. Of course, like I remember myself after like when October 7th happened, for 3 weeks I was just really like no one could talk to me, and I was just very, very, very sad and just questioning life, like questioning the entire world, like how are we even here? Like how is this even real, like how's this happening? And we had one of our friends visit us recently and he even admitted like the distance being here in the US, it's much easier to disconnect yourself. And so that's why I find myself contradicting myself a lot because like Yara said, our entire lives we were very close to this topic. Even in our own home, we always found ourselves discussing the topic. My dad was very, very specific on us understanding the conflict and what's happening on the ground. But now, being here in the US, it's very easy to turn a blind eye. So that's where like I find the contradiction of myself, like within myself happening of like I want to be up to date, but at the same time I cannot look at any of those images anymore. How has it been in Dubai? Obviously you are in the region, the news there is much different than what we get here in the US. So
Because
how
I think there's something in common. كلنا at a certain point in time حسينا حالنا انه we need to disconnect a bit لانه كتير اثرت فينا كلنا on an emotional level. أول ما صارت القصص بأكتوبر like on October 7th بعتقد كثير منا فكروا إنه okay this is the usual this is an attack
It's
just
gonna
like
stop.
usual it's gonna stop ما حدا منا تخيل إنه نكون هلا 6-7 months into it وبعدنا عم نشوف نفس الأشياء وصور أضرب عم تطلع من فلسطين.
Oh my God, worse. Yeah.
Worse, yeah, pictures that are much worse,
Yeah.
you know, like images, videos that are worse.
Yeah.
And I think ما بعتقد في شيء صح أو غلط be the way that we need to be reacting to this topic or to what's happening. But at the same time, I mean, I completely agree with you. أول ما صارت القصة October 7th كل الوقت ماسكين تليفوناتنا عم نحكي مع بعض إنه what do you think شو عم بيصير شو هيدا وشو رح يصير. And I think the way that I personally feel about the topic is very close to the way that you feel about it. بعتقد ما في شيء اسمه صح وغلط بردة فعلنا على شو عم بيصير هلا على أرض الواقع. بس كمان at the same time بعتقد كتير منا بفضلوا ما يقعدوا على انستغرام أو على السوشيال ميديا كل نهار عم يطلعوا على الصور والفيديوز لأنه it causes a lot of stress and it causes a lot of emotional anxiety يعني it's not something anyone wants to subject themselves to on a daily basis. وكلنا تأثرنا بشكل مش طبيعي in October and until today. But at the same time, we're all in this kind of, I don't know, like in the middle where بدنا نكمل حياتنا بدنا نعيش حياتنا عادي كل شيء حيكمل بس at the same time بدنا نقعد نفكر طب كيف حنكمل حياتنا عادي وهو هيك عم بصير. In today's day and age, this is not something that should be happening. And the way that media portrays it here, and this is going to shock a lot of people, or maybe not. بس أكثر الأخبار اللي عم تطلع هي عم تطلع على إنستغرام على the social media platforms, right? مش إنه حدا قاعد عم يحضر the TV channels, the Arabic news channels that come out about the situation. لأنه أوكي بحطوا لك رؤوس أقلام مثلا like a headline of what's happening بس ما حدا بفت لك بالتفاصيل ما حدا بحط لك عن جد شو عم بيصير بالأرض الواقع. One لأنه ما فيهم يفوتوا ويصوروا على الأرض شو بيعملوا يعني they can't. Two, in the region a lot of people are treading on thin waters when it comes to this topic because of a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing to point out is you and I have a lot of friends that are Arabs, right? So at the end of the day, a lot of the content that we're seeing on Instagram or a lot of the content that's on our feed or stories or whatnot, I say Instagram, but I mean like a lot of the social media platforms, is people posting and talking about Palestine.
Yeah.
But في كتير عالم that don't have people posting about Palestine on their feed. So a friend that's in the States, for example, that lives, I don't know, in Texas or something, that's fully American. They might not know what's happening on ground, and I might be their only source of, I don't want to say knowledge, but kind of news about what's happening on ground. وما بدي أكون أنا الشخص that's not giving this information, but at the same time, and I think a lot of us are guilty of this maybe not, I want to protect myself. Because me posting also causes a lot of emotional stress on myself. And I'm just going to say this because I'm privileged enough to be able to say this.
Yeah. And it's important that we recognize the privileges that we have, you know, and I think for all of us, we don't understand, you know, there's a lot of like subliminal trauma and emotional distress that you cause yourself when you see these يعني بركي انت بتصيري بتحسي حالك انه صرتي I'm numb to these images بس انت عن جد you're not وانت you're really causing stress on yourself يمكن بلا ما حتى عم تلاحظي بقى على حالك you know or على حالك. And so for me the first month or two that this was happening, that's what was happening. I was صرت حس حالي انه خلص I'm very short tempered وما ما في شيء عم يقطع معي like ما عم اقدر اقطع شيء. وبعدين عن جد انه when I reflected انه اوكي شو اللي عم بيصير طب ما عن جد this is the 21st century. This is real genocide happening in front of our eyes, and we're all witnesses to it, and we're all helpless. We all feel helpless. يعني أنا هيدا أكتر شي عندي, where this was part of the discussion that we were talking about when our my friend that was visiting, he was a Palestinian friend and he was visiting us. And this is what we were talking about, was the fact إنه بتصيري بتحسي حالك, and then what? Like, okay, I'm posting all of this. I'm trying to educate as much as I can. I'm trying to share قد ما I can. But to what gains and like to what extent بصير أنا عم ضر حالي لما عم أعمل هول الأشياء. وبتصير بتحسي إنه أوكي عم ضر حالي, عم أأذي حالي, وما عم أقدر أصلاً. We're helpless and we're not able to make a difference. We're not able to make a change. You know, there's been this uproar on social media. Yes, there's been this eye-opening flow of information on Instagram. Yes, there's so many people now that are much more educated than they were before.
Mm-hmm.
But everything in Gaza is still the same. And so for me, that's where the helplessness comes in, where I'm just like, وبعدين, the power of social media is real, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen changes.
Right? Yeah.
We've seen changes even in policies that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, the suffering on the ground is not ending, which is what we want to end. ما عم توقف. We understand this is a much bigger political game than any of us even can begin to fathom. But there's real people, there's real children, there's real families that are being tortured, torn apart, killed every single day. Well, I know that there's wars happening in other countries, and this is not us turning a blind eye to other countries that are also suffering. But at the same time, when you're seeing such a mass scale of a genocide happening, like, it's so hard. تحس إنه شو ما عم تعملي, بعرف إنه قلت إنه ما في شيء صح وما في شيء غلط, بس بتضلك عم تحس شو ما تعملي ما فيك تعملي شيء صح وكل شيء عم تعمليه غلط. You know?
Yeah, but listen, Anna, there's one thing that I think comes from people posting, right? And I think it's the fact that we've seen some people, for example, at the start, they had a different opinion to what they had in the middle, to what they currently have.
Yeah.
وبعتقد أنا الشيء اللي كتير منيح اللي عم بيصير إنه everyone has provided an open platform for dialogue on their social media platform, on their own social media platforms, right? With some of their friends that might not be as close to the topic as they are. وأنا بعتقد إنه it's okay, and that's the good thing. People have seen that they are allowed to get educated and to change their minds on a lot of different things when it comes to this topic particularly. وأنا بالنسبة لإلي هيدا الشيء كتير منيح. Okay.
Yeah.
يعني يمكن نحن, I think, when it comes to media and the way that it portrays it, I think there's a lot of things that are underlying, or like you said initially, it's not subliminal messaging, but at the end of the day بس تحسي حالك عم بتشوفي نفس الشيء, كذا شخص عم بيحط نفس الشيء وعم بيقول نفس الشيء, بس تشوفي universities in the US, like huge universities with some of the smartest people, right? Some of the smartest students looking at this and thinking, what the hell's happening? There's something wrong there. I think كل هول الأشياء, okay, يمكن بتحسي أنت إنه media is not doing much, but at the same time, كل هول الأشياء have happened لأنه media has become a platform for people to freely express themselves, and quote unquote freely, right? مش كل العالم فيها تبوست كل شيء بالدنيا.
وبعدين عليكي, let's go back to the thought of US versus Middle East or GCC region when it comes to media coverage. For me, or even like social media, for me, كنت لما أنا كنت بلبنان وعايشة بلبنان كنت ضلني أقول إنه عما بقلبهم like they're so إنه معقول هالقد تكون أنت بعيد وما بتعرف شو عم بيصير برات Little Texas, you know what I mean? Not Little Texas, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now that I'm here, I understand.
Yeah, of course.
I get it.
Yeah, of
I
course.
100% get how you can be so detached. I 100% get how you can be not uneducated, but just lack the knowledge that you need around a
You
certain
can choose
topic.
to ignore it more easily.
Very,
And
very easily. I'm
yeah,
guilty of it myself. يعني
we're all
أول ما
guilty of
كنت
it. ما تفكري حتى نحن وقاعدين هون we're guilty of
إيه
it. ما تفكري
إيه
إنه في
إنه لما
أيام بتحسي حالك إنه يا الله okay I'm seeing everything and then when something huge happens like what happened yesterday you see
yes,
more coverage on your
yes,
social media platform
yes.
and then or the media itself
You're
يعني
like, oh,
the traditional media and you're reminded العمى it's still happening بعده نفس الشيء عم بصير صح
mm,
there's a lot of countries that try to push policy try to change some laws try to ما بعرف implement some things بس
yeah,
بآخر النهار مش عم يقدروا يعملوها وأنا بالنسبة لإلي آخر النهار كمان في عنا كتير عالم على السوشيال media that start pointing the finger and playing the blame game or playing the okay بس انتم my friends the Arabs ما بقى نكون you're posting as much or looking at celebrities and kind of
yeah,
trying to like validate you know what I mean وأنا بالنسبة لإلي ما حدا خصه بالتاني when it
صح
comes to what they're posting on their social media platforms and
صح.
I think هاي صارت شغلة that's just very everyone is now sitting on their high chair and thinking that they're better than everyone else simply for posting or educating بآخر النهار ما حدا بيعرف what the other person goes through when they either see these images, talk about this about this topic, or discuss this topic, or even what they're going through, regardless of what's happening in Palestine at the moment. يمكن
Yeah,
في
you
شيء
still
صار
have your own personal
yeah
life that you're going through as well.
and
And
I just
actually,
I don't get it ما عم بفهم ليه انتوا عم بتقولوا لي انه I shouldn't be able to sleep at night why are you the person telling me you should be posting more actually maybe I'm doing something that's a bit more beneficial than posting on social media
yeah,
بس بآخر النهار ما حدا مضطر يعمل what other people expect of them
مظبوط.
you choose, you decide the narrative or the story or whatever you want to show on your own social media platform.
Yeah,
But you also decide about what the education that you want to get about this specific topic. I'm not
100%.
saying there's right or wrong, like I initially said.
Yeah,
I'm saying at the end of the day, educate yourself. Educate yourself to a specific degree where you feel you know enough to leverage or to actually give in your opinion when it comes to this topic or this
yeah,
conversation. But really educate yourself. لأنه this is a genocide happening in real time.
yeah,
وبآخر النهار ما بدكم to look back at yourself, I don't know, 20 years from today and question what you were thinking, what you were, I don't want to say doing, but what your thoughts were, and if you made an effort to really acknowledge what's happening or educate yourself on what's happening.
yeah. And I think like أكيد hold yourself accountable على كل شيء اللي أنت عم تعمله during this time. بس it's not fair مثل ما أنت عم بتقولي to make other people feel less than
Yeah.
because they're not able to. أنا myself I know إنه أول ما بلش like right after October 7th and for 40 days or 50 days after that every single day I was posting about it every single day. و- then I've stopped and I've pulled back a lot more now. And I want to be like fully honest here and disclose that unfortunately, we live in a time where because social media is so apparent and it's so open, I, for example, have a public profile. Every single one of my employers, every single one of my colleagues, everyone has visibility onto my social media platforms. Whether we want to admit it or not, these play a role in our professional careers. You want to say it doesn't? You want to say I'm in the land of the free? Go for it. But you can never come at me and judge me for my personal situation when it comes to this topic. لأنه unfortunately again يعني أنا ماني عم أقول هول الأشياء ومبسوطة من حالي or مبسوطة إنه this is the situation by the
It's just
way.
about saying the
بس
reality of things.
exactly. The realistic things that we need to account for that are happening in our day-to-day lives. And yes, as much as we want to support everything, there's so many sad things happening in the world today. وقد ما نحن بدنا نكون we're supporting them all، أوقات في أشياء واقعية بالحياة بتصير معك that you also have to consider.
Of course.
And it's just the sad reality of the world that we live in today. So don't hold your friends accountable for how they use their social media platforms. You don't know what's happening with them. You don't know who's on their social media that they're trying. You don't know what, I'm saying, whatever legal case they're going through right now that they can't talk about a certain topic, you know? But yeah, it's definitely for me something that I personally struggle with and that I know a lot of people struggle with. Even friends that are Palestinians, they struggle with this a lot.
أكيد everyone that's not living there, that's not in the situation today, is going to be struggling with this. لأنه بتحس حالك you're living هيك like a split life, right? قلبك معهم وبدك تساعديهم بأي طريقة، بس بآخر النهار حياتك منا هونيك، بدك تكملي حياتك، الشخص بده يكمل حياته. And I think كمان what's very important to point out is you can disagree with a lot of your friends on a lot of things. You can educate them if they are open to being educated, but never attack each other. Attacking each other is really very unhealthy, and it does the complete opposite. It has the complete opposite effect to what you want it to have. So just, I think, respect each other's opinions. أكيد if, I don't know, this is like a personal thing, but أكيد if their values are completely different than your values, that's your choice whether or not to stay friends with them. Just don't attack each other. Have an open dialogue. Have a discussion. If they agree with the genocide, be the person that ما بعرف, not educates them لأنه like I said, I think we all need to be held accountable for our own education, but maybe point them in the right direction for them to be able to educate themselves and form their own opinions. Help them, right? Anyone can change their mind about this topic and many other things as well anytime. And I think everybody needs to be open to changing their mind when it comes to things or when it comes to this specific topic.
For sure. And I think if it's one lesson that we've taken, all of us, from all of the ugliness that's in the world, is try to bring as much brightness, as much kindness, as much grace as you can with every interaction. You don't know what people are going through. You don't know how much your words can really affect people. So even when you're trying to help someone navigate through this topic, do it with kindness, do it with open-heartedness, and do it with always just patience and grace. You know, like, it's a very hard thing to navigate at the moment. Like you said, even though there really is no right and wrong, internally, I'm sure we're all struggling. At least the conversations that I've had with people, we're all struggling about what is right or wrong.
When it comes to social media and the norms of that, not when it comes to our stance on this topic, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Our stance always remains the same, of course. But definitely when it comes to the way that you're approaching social media with this topic specifically, social media or even just like
conversation with friends.
Yeah, 100%. Just make sure you are approaching it with kindness.
An open mind.
Yeah, something stuck with me also from a conversation that I had with a colleague. And, you know, she specifically touched on a topic that she called taught history. Okay? And this is really crucial because you have to understand the different backgrounds that people are coming from, the different ways they were raised, the different ways they were exposed to this topic and to this conversation growing up. طب ما هيدي بتلعب دور كتير مهم كمان.
أكيد. Man, أنت و your best friend يمكن ما تكونوا بتفكروا بذات الطريقة. أنا و my cousin ما بنكون عم نفكر بذات الطريقة when it comes to this topic. And this is real life, right? أكيد كلنا we all stand with humanity and with being kind and with not with genocide obviously بس بآخر النهار كلنا عنا a different opinion
Thought
or a
history.
different view exactly or a different taught history as Petra's saying or something else that we've discussed or we've touched upon when it comes to the topic of Palestine and everything. But it's really about understanding that you guys can be best friends, you guys can be cousins, your family, and at the end of the day, you can have a different approach to this topic.
مظبوط.
There are, I think, a million things for us to unbox and to uncover when it comes to this topic. And we are never, and I say this confidently actually, we're never going to be able to cover all of these topics with anyone. لأنه كل شخص عنده a different perspective, a different point of view, or a different background story to how things have happened.
Yeah. But I think just to wrap up the discussion, what I want to say is when it comes specifically to social media, and I'm giving you a full frontal perspective of someone being in the US and someone being in Dubai, give grace to everyone around you. لأنه trust me when I say the algorithm here in the US is not playing in our favor in terms of educating about the topic. They're really trying to control the conversation on social as much as they can. So I just say again, be kind when you are approaching this topic with anyone. Try to understand that they are in completely different shoes and walking a completely different journey than you are. And so just find the grace within yourself to really just bring out the best. And again, obviously, our stance on this is always, to stop the genocide. We always stand with the Palestinian people. It's always going to be an internal struggle for us to kind of navigate this topic and this conversation. But it's definitely one, I think, that we need to bring forth always and not be scared about talking about it. Because I think there was always a lot of fear about talking about this. And I think now the best thing that social media has done is take that fear element away and say, hey, come, let's sit on the same table and let's discuss.
Yeah. I think there's also يعني نحن أنا وبترا وقتها بلشنا نحكي إنه we want to talk about Palestine on the podcast. We were saying we don't want this to come out in a very political way because we can be فينا ننفعل كثير أنا وبترا بهذا الموضوع. بترا أكثر مني. بترا بتنفعل أكثر مني. بس كمان في يعني it can go in so many different directions. But at the same time, we want to have this conversation. We want to have this open dialogue. We want to touch upon it. This is just our kind of honest conversation about how we felt when it comes to social media and this topic. I think there's a lot of things that we can unpack. But today, this is what we chose to unpack. If there's anything else that you think would be worth us unpacking, not in a political manner, we would love to. We would love to hear anything that you have to say. وبعتقد آخر شي رح أقوله وهي شي باترا كمان قالته قبل شوي. Be open and give others grace. Give yourself grace. إذا حاسين حالكم ما بدكم تحطوا هالأخبار على السوشيال ميديا ما تحسوا حالكم pressured. ما عليه. Don't put it on social media. بآخر النهار it's about what feels right for you and what works for you. لأنه بالنتيجة فيها تكون عن جد عم بتأثر عليكم or على your friends. So check in on your Palestinian friends. They're going through this on a daily, obviously. I can't imagine not ever being able to go back home. And then now, I don't know. I hope I pray I never have to, or we never have to experience it. And I pray that this comes to an end sooner, much rather than later, because خلص بعتقد ما عاد حدا فيه يتحمل.
Yeah, I think enough is enough. Thank you for joining us on this discussion. And again, please be kind to us and to each other and to yourselves, most importantly.
Thank you for tuning in.
Peace always.
always.